What's going on, everybody? Looks like we're live. And nobody beat me this time. Usually I get a few comments before I even go live. I guess when you post, I don't know, I guess when you initialize it, it sends out notifications before you actually go live. I've got people comment. That's crazy. But I like it. Let me get this link copied. Don't think Clint's going to be with us tonight, but I'm going to send him a link in case he gets in here later on or something happens and he can pick it up. Either way, I always send him a link in case something goes awry. Get it awry? Distiller joke there. Terrible, terrible. What's going on, Patty? Oh, Mrs. O, that's the boss. Hope y'all doing well. Hope everybody had a good weekend and 250th birthday of America celebration, Independence Day. It was awesome. I went up to Fields and hung out and ate burgers and corn and watermelon, and man, it was good. Shot off tons of fireworks. Man, it was like a city's fireworks there. I don't know, between Phil and his neighbor, I don't know which one had the best. Man, it was like the Ukraine over there. Man, it's booming big time. Finally got your steeping conversion. Awesome, awesome. Did you bring them temps up? Man, they're hard to maintain, though. Those hot temps are tough to maintain. That's why eventually you're going to probably want to try to steep, but do it in the pot, just turn that heat way down. But for a lot of people, they just don't realize how much you have to turn the heat down and how hard it is to steep. Now, you can turn the heat way down, and on a separate, turkey fryer, keep a couple of gallons of water boiling, that way you can keep adding it, because you don't want to scorch, because that'll just totally ruin it. But at the same time, it's tough to steep. Coolers, if you got a cooler, or if you can, get like a big 55-gallon plastic barrel and then put a 40 inside that and foam around it real good, you can insulate, make a really good, as good as a cooler, right? For steeping. It's awesome for steeping. All right, we got a newcomer. What's going on, Fishkins? Good to have you, brother. Trying your first batch. All right. Well, tell us what you got rolling. What's going on, Greg, from Ohio? That's where I spent the weekend, up there at Philbilly. The Big Rock Candy Mountain. Hell yeah. That's what happens when you use too much sugar, right? With your fruit. What's going on, Curtis? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, when you're trying to make a brandy and you just keep adding sugar and sugar and sugar, eventually you end up with that Big Rock candy, don't you? What's going on, Seashine? Good to see you. Yeah, we had a great time, man. Drank pretty good shine. Old Derek came by with some of his good old grain. Pretty good. Phil Billy had some of his roasted marshmallow out that was really good. And some other stuff that's top secret I can't talk about. Fish Kings, what you got going? Your first batch. So is this grain? You got some cracked corn going? Tell us what's happening, brother. We can coach you through it if you need coaching. Hell, you may end up getting a pretty good steeping conversion. So, Patty, how much did you start out with, and what was your gravity? What's going on, Mr. Baker? Good to see you, Joseph. Good to see you, brother. But I'm interested in hearing about Patty's steeping conversion. I think last time, maybe it was temperature, maybe. I'm thinking it was temperature, if I remember correctly. You're not done your gravity yet? That's all right. Oh, it's still cooling off then. But somebody doing gravity and checking the temperature of your distillate, um, both to be done at around 60 degrees. So you can make a little conversion on your gravity, um, and proofing. Both of your hydrometers will come with a conversion chart. But there is a reason they made 60 for the proofing hydrometer, the one that measures the proof of your alcohol. And that's because at 60, that's really an optimal temperature for your distillate to come out. It's not too hot, not too cold. A lot of people ask why. Several reasons. If it comes in too cold, it can create a vacuum in your worm. It also helps. It coagulates a lot of the fats, and you don't want those fats to coagulate and get. You want them to kind of stay in a more of a liquid form. You don't want them coagulating and turning white, and making little floaties in your distillate, which can and will happen. They call it saponification, especially if you have like a very alkaline water that you're proofing with. They'll just show right up, man, in a heartbeat, because they're already kind of, but also a lot of people say you don't want it to come out warmer because it makes the liquor hotter. Well, there's a reason that the liquor tastes hotter when your distillate comes out warm, and that has to do with volatility. The hotter something is, the more active the electrons are on the atoms, the more active they are. That's why when water boils, it's more active than that. Like it freezes, they're barely hardly moving, right? So, surrounding all these atoms, when they get hot like that, there's a lot more atomic activity. And when you get that with volatile substances, they put off a lot more volatile. That's why when they get warmer, right, they start to evaporate more readily. That's how we distill, right? We increase the temperature, the more activity, until they start just evaporating. They start breaking off the molecule and just evaporating into air. And so when you're drinking something that's coming off at a warmer temperature, you're getting a lot of those volatiles as you drink. And olfactory and tasting, a lot of times when you smell stuff, you think you're tasting it, right? Because all your senses are working together. So a lot of times when it's coming off warm like that, it's not really hotter. It just tastes and seems hotter because you've got all those volatiles coming off. You're smelling as you taste, and it's the more active. Best to let it sit and evaporate for a day, right? And a lot of those volatiles come right off there, and then it will taste smoother and less alcohol-y, because you're getting less isopropyls. That's one of the things that'll evaporate off, and one of the active things. Oh, Miss Lisa, good to see you, dear. 15 gallons of water, 30 pounds of ground dent. Awesome. That's great, brother. 2 pounds per gallon is good. And 1060, 1065 is perfect. So we'll see. And if it needs a little bit of sugar, that's okay, because you didn't just take corn and water and 2 pounds per gallon like most people end up having to do when they don't do any conversion at all. So instead, you might need a few ounces per gallon instead of 2 pounds, instead of 32 ounces. So maybe it'll take 6, who knows, but whatever it is, you've got a lot of the sugars out of that grain, which is huge. But hopefully Clint will be with us later on. He's still working away. Oh, I better get these damn links out. Lord, that might help. And Fiskins, you can tell us why I'm sharing these links. You can let us know what you got going on, and let us know what your gravity is, and maybe we can help coach you up if you need it. If not, we can talk about your success story next week. So it won't take long. Let me share these links. I skipped a few days, maybe and it doesn't matter how fast I go, so I'm not going to try to go slow, because I tried that last week, and somebody told me that'd work, and I read some things online, and they said go slower. They think you're a bot, and it didn't work. Wait a minute. Yeah. But we'll get them out to these groups pretty quickly here and get right back with you. That's the worst part of the show. It's the only part I really don't like. Said, well, I don't know. I think it's funny when some of the trolls get on there. I've got a pretty good sense of humor, so I can laugh at a lot of things that get a lot of people uptight about. I don't really get worked up over a lot of things unless I'm drinking. And if I'm drinking, I'm usually pretty good until people rile me up. I'm easily riled up though when I'm drinking. Imagine that. Imagine that. Few boy here. So what everybody had for dinner tonight? I had some pretty good little pork tenderloins. Some fresh corn on the cob and baked taters. Man, it's good. We get these little pork tenderloins. They're wrapped in bacon. I get them $1 each. They're 6 ounces and wrapped in bacon. $1. Well, they're on sale. When they go on sale, they're $1 each. Man, those things are so good. I get about 20 of them at a time. It's a great value. I'll eat a couple of them, and I'll have one, and that's $3. That's the meat. It's pretty damn good value. Pretty good value. Man, I noticed in one of the groups I share too, they were commenting on something. There was like 200 and some comments. And it's a large group like I used to do with Joe Rutledge. And I used to admin over, well, some of the groups had over 200. So we were close to 1,000,000 people adminning, but it's good to see we got some large groups, but there's a lot of misinformation in these groups. So I hopefully they'll watch this podcast and come here with their questions and instead of asking it in there. And this wasn't one of Joe's groups. But need to talk with Frank. I think Frank's overseeing those groups now. I would like to get some participation from that crowd as well. Good people. And they know me. I had been there for a long time. Oh, before we get much further in today's episode, I'd like to take a minute and have a little silent prayer for Solomon. He passed away. Solomon Sutton. This past weekend, he passed away. So my prayers and condolences to his family. Sad. Boy was 31. Gone way too soon. He was a good guy. And he was a friend. We wasn't real close. I hadn't talked to him a lot. We met at Maggie, and I talked to him a little bit. But I mean, I would have liked to have. Eventually, we would have been better friends. I like to think. He was a great guy. Will definitely be missed. All right, so I got fewer than usual. Yeah, lots of nitpickers. It's like monkeys, aren't they? Just picking, picking, picking. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And they can't wait to pounce and correct you, when I mean, it's nice if you get corrected nicely. Say, well, technically it's this and that. It's a lot of people call it that, but technically it's this, and there's a right and a wrong way. And a lot of times that's why I won't comment a lot in a group because, on here inflection's not lost because you can hear the sincerity of my voice, and you know that I'm trying to help. But in text, a lot of times it can be taken wrong too. So, I've kind of been taken as if I was coming across and as a know-it-all or an ass, and it's like that's not intended at all. But I do know that a lot of people do intend it that way, and but it's hard to sense inflection. That's why I really enjoy people being able to hear my voice, and because I kind of type like I talk, kind of direct. I don't try to beat around the bush a lot, and I don't soften it up probably as much as I should when I type, and I just call it out straight, and a lot of times it comes across wrong when I type that way. So I um, try to, I don't walk on eggshells, but I try to word it in such a way that people know I'm just being sincere and trying to help, not know it all, because it's easy to sound like a know it all when you're trying to help somebody, and I don't want to be seen as that because I don't, and I don't profess to, never have. And I don't mind, if sometimes somebody asks a question and be like, hell, I don't know, man. Let's get on Google and let's do some research. Let's go to some .edus and .govs and some really good websites with some educational fact and get away from Reddit and mindless opinions, and let's get into some facts, and read about that. And I try to explain it all out and just instead of just being a short to, I kind of, when I first started doing this, I was kind of short and directly to the point. And I don't think a lot of people really got that. I appreciate Oshi. But I try to, teach what I do know and learn from what I don't, And I can tell you, there's been many times people come on here with questions, especially about some of these, you know, fruits from all over the world, man. I don't know what, it's like, man, I don't know. I've never heard of that. It doesn't grow around here. It's something from Canada and the Pacific Northwest or something. It's like, we don't get that around here. I don't know. And that's the same, I could probably talk about a pawpaw to them and they'd look at me like, you talking about a grandfather? He calls something a pawpaw. You talking about somebody's grandfather? So you just never know. But it's, I like it because I learned a lot too. I've learned a lot being on here and sharing information. We get people from on here all over, and talking about some of their methods and distillates and fruits and veggies that they distill with. Pretty interesting stuff, man. Uh, Welding? You mean soldering, or are you actually going to weld? I mean, it's what's going on, Mikey? You better say hi to me too, bro. I'm looking up here. I don't see it. Oh, it's saying hi to Lisa first. All right, we see you pecking order here. But welding, I guess, brazing, welding, soldering, yeah, it's you can weld copper. It's tough to do. We talked about, there was a group, somebody was talking about that earlier. Asking about welding the copper. And it takes a lot of consumables. There's gases and of course a TIG welder ain't cheap, and the gases aren't cheap, and the rods, if you're using a rod, I mean, a lot of people don't know it, but you can sit there and TIG weld with a grounding, a piece of ground from just regular Romex wire. The ground is copper. Um, the positive and neutral are plated, but the actual ground is in those, and the wire and stuff, and the Romex is copper. So you can use that as a little miniature rod and fine work it. But yeah, it's a lot of people will put braces on there, and you can have like a copper brace or something going above it to support it, or like a little angle coming up, from lower down, uh, on the cap. But yeah, make a one that doesn't go out too far and has good support from the inside as well. Kind of bend it on the inside and shape it to the cap on the inside, and that way it kind of holds in place as you solder. Um, but yeah, just trying to butt solder um, a lint arm would be pretty tough. So you want to kind of go inside the cap, come through, and then kind of flatten it out all the way around and solder it from the inside and the outside if you can. Two feet long. Now you're going to slope down 45 like a good Kentucky cap then. Um, yeah, it should be fine. Actually, that's a little easier to do than the ones that come straight out. So, um, but yeah, just make sure that you got plenty bent over on the inside and soldered on the inside and the outside. Just trying to butt solder be pretty tough for it to self support, but you get it. You tap it on the inside and flatten it out and get a little bit of overlap, and solder the inside and let it soak in, and then do the outside. Yeah, it'll work pretty well. And I've seen people add, tubes to help support it too if you need to. But it should be fine. Just a couple feet long. That's pretty good. Look forward to seeing it, brother. And the best thing about copper, if it messes up, you can unsolder it and try again, Unsolder it, clean it up, flux it, and try over. Yeah, you can TIG at copper, but it takes the way it dissipates heat so well and rapidly. It's a little tougher, not to overheat and get just enough and to use enough gas. Hooks to your Vevers. Yeah. You got a 2.5 or a 2 to 2.5 reducer. That's perfect. And if it connects to Vevers, it'll connect to a keg too. So yeah, you can use it for a lot of different things. Because kegs have 2-inch ferrules on them. So that'll work. Eight-gallon pot to 3-gallon thumper. Cool. Oh, this is the one that you did the bulkhead fitting on, right? The bulkhead ferrule fitting. Yeah, I remember. Cool. How's Mr. Frame? Awesome, awesome. Did you get a butterfly valve? Those big heavy duty valves. I made the mistake of buying a regular valve. What's going on, Frank? Good to see you, brother. I made the mistake of buying one of those regular valves, 2-inch valves. And the body of it was like that big around, solid steel. And it was like that long. And it probably weighed, I don't know, you can do curls with it, man. It's about a 20-pound, it's 20 pounds if it was a pound, valve. And yeah, the 2-inch ball valves, if it's like what I'm talking about, rated for 300 psi, and I mean it's like 20 pounds, bro, and it's heavy, thick steel, and it was hard to open and close. Fortunately, it got dinged in shipping, and right where the base is, right, and right where the gaskets go. So I wasn't even taking chances of it leaking, or else it'd been my mistake and I'd have kept it. But so unfortunately, it got damaged, and I returned that damn thing. But yeah, it was heavy. Butterfly valves they're not real heavy at all. 2-inch. And I use that for my vapor valves, to allow vapor pass to channel it one way or the other. And they work fine. And it's probably not fine for, like if you wanted to use them as a drain valve, probably not good for drain valves, but great for vapor valves, for just channeling vapor here and there. But the ball valves, for a drain or something. Oh, okay. Oh, it's okay. So is this a ferrule? Does it have like a 2-inch ferrule on each side of it, or is it just a smaller screw MPC, whatever? Because one I got was a 2-inch ferrule on each side, and man, it was like that long, and the steel was like that right there, and it was heavy as hell. Well, you know what? Before you get aged whiskey, you got to have moonshine, brother. That's what makes the aged whiskey is moonshine before it's aged. It's called White Dog, and most of your big distilleries sell a White Dog now. And but moonshine basically is just an untaxed liquor. It can be gin, it can be vodka, it can be rum, it can be a lot of different things. But aged whiskey starts out as a moonshine, a corn liquor, with some other grains in it. So, a lot of people don't like it when it's straight off the tap, and it is a bit hot and different. I do. I preferred aged whiskey as well, to most shine. But there's nothing like good old corn liquor too. It's pretty good if you get the right stuff. So not all moonshine sucks. Some do. I've tasted some pretty bad shine. That's for sure. Oh my goodness. You got pulled over, got arrested, you couldn't drink, is in the pen. Your wife came to visit with her family. That's even worse. Oh, then it just got worse when you woke up and she was sitting there asking you what the hell's wrong with you. That's funny. Penny cracks me up. Yeah, Jason, you gotta find people that make better shine, brother. And all I can say, I've tasted some pretty bad shine in my days. I've made some pretty bad shine in my days. I'd say most that make it will admit it if they're honest with you. They've made some bad. I've scorched some shit and it tasted horrible, but you got to take the speed bumps to get to the highway. But yeah, most of your whiskey is basically just a White Dog grain liquor, that they put in a barrel and age. Yeah, beer bottles are great too. Yeah. All right, question. My 30-gallon pot has a 2-inch tri-clamp fitting on the top. Perfect. Could I put a 2x4 reducer upside down so I can go into some? Absolutely. And that's actually what I'm getting ready to do. Right here is a 4-inch bubble plate that I'm putting together. Column, one of the glass columns, and I'm going 2 to 4 into it, just like you're talking about doing. That works perfectly well. Just make sure that you have support, because once you start doing that, you get a little bit of weight on top of your pot. So sometimes, put a hook in the ceiling, run a wire down, or even, hell, just nylon rope. It's just 200 degrees. It's not going to melt the rope. Okay. So, yeah, but, make sure that you got plenty of support. But yeah, let me show a picture of what I got. Now you can get these from a lot of places. Philbilly's got them. He makes a good deal on them. Let's see here. Are you talking about that right there? That's what that plate comes from. This right here. But yeah, that'll work perfect, brother. Just make sure you got support. That's the only biggie. But yeah, you'll like it. You'll definitely like it. What's going on, Kurt? Yeah, I had a pretty good fourth, brother. There's not a reason that or a benefit you get from it. Some people say it gets smoother over time. Sometimes people will introduce a lactobacillus in there, and it can kind of eat some of the alcohol. So you don't want to really let it sit too long, or a calm yeast can get in there and start doing the same. But it does impart some creaminess. I've heard of people say, I left that in a barrel. My buddy Tom, I left that in a barrel in the barn. I forgot all about it. 6, 8 months later, the spring comes. I went out and looked and oh shit, I forgot I left that in there and ran it. It's some of the best they ever ran. So is there a reason people do? No, but one of the good things about our hobby is sometimes if we get busy doing other things like what work and family, like winemaking too, you can put it off and it's just going to be okay. The world's not going to end. That wine, whether it sits in that bottle another week or 5 or another year, unless it's certain fruits, it's just going to get better, right? So, but I will also say at the same time, sometimes it can start to get dry. So, you can get a dry taste from the distillate after it sits for a long period of time and it just consumes every little bit of alcohol in there. It can start to get a little bit dry and you can notice that. What's going on, Schroden? Love listening. Curious your thoughts on adding glycerin to smooth out moonshine. Well, a lot of people will say, "Oh, that's the biggest no-no ever," and a lot of people say, "Oh, you can't be putting those kind of chemicals in your chemicals, right?" Glycerins are naturally occurring things, and you're going to get some glycerins from even the vegetables that you use. Um, got a buddy that makes a shine from bamboo, and it's one of the Francisco, if you know him, and it's one of the best, smoothest liquors you could just dream of. It's like 100 proof, and it's just almost like nothing, man. It's just so smooth, and it's because there's so many natural glycerols in that bamboo that it's like adding glycerin to it almost. Um, it's considered a no because it's considered like cheating to make it smooth, and my biggest concern is it can give you diarrhea. So aside from that, I'm all fine. Let me know if you do though, so I don't drink too much of it and wake up with the shits the next morning. But other than that, it's fine. It's as long as it comes from a good natural source. You know, there's worse things that can happen, right? But you know, just I would like to know beforehand so I wouldn't just sit and get hammered on it all night and then just have the trots for 2 or 3 days after that. But other than that, it's fine with me. A lot of people say, "Oh my God, he just said that," but um, yeah. Other than diarrhea, it's there's definitely worse things. But like I said, there's a lot of natural glycerins and glycerols and even corn. Look, you can Google and check how much glycerols are in different distillates or that we make from different sources and corn. Let's see how much glycerol is in corn. Let's just Google that. I hadn't checked that. Naturally only trace, so there's not a lot in corn. All right, so let's see. I'm going to say glycerols. I'm going to say vegetables or fruits. High in glycerols. Let's find out that way. It'd probably be easier than. Okay. Most don't consider a lot, but more in process, like dried fruits, raisins, canned vegetables, processed fruit sauces, where glycerins are usually added as a sweetener, thickening agent, or preservative. Glycerin or glycerol is a sugar alcohol. While fruits and veggies naturally hold trace carbohydrates and sugars, they lack the chemical setup. Free fatty acids or unique fermentation to produce free glycerin on their own in the body. Well, in the body. The glycerin found in commercial plant foods is extracted industrial from sources like coconut, palm, soybean oils. Okay. But I do know that it's in because I did some research on why that bamboo shine was so smooth, and it was because it's pretty high in glycerol. Let's see. Lignocellulosic plant. Interesting. Bamboo extract in a glycerin base. Cool. But that's what I found on that. Yeah, it's okay. It's a lot of people will say it's cheating, but a little bit, with along with some other things. I mean, as long as you don't overdo it, of course. But it's best to try to make it so smooth you won't need it. If I'm not using a thumper for flavoring, can I leave it empty and throw in some copper cuttings or mesh? Oh, I see what you're saying. To use it as a chamber to, yeah. I mean, you anything you can put in the vapor path like that, it's still going to, water is going to condense in there. So you're still going to get a second distillation, even if you're not using it for a fuser or infusing flavors. You're still going to get condensation in there. You're going to be kind of getting that second distillation from the steam and from the vapor, right? And so it is going to, come out at a higher proof. But yeah, that's a fine place to put them, and a lot of people will put them, if you're running just instead of a thumper with a downcomer going all the way down, you're running a puke pot or, it's called a lot of different things. I call them puke pots, but anyway, slobber box, it's the same thing. You can put it in there, to get it in the path as well. Definitely never put it in small diameter copper though. So it's much better than there. I've had people, I've talked about, forcing it into, half-inch copper. Please do not ever do that. Put it in a chamber of some sort, put it in a slobber box, puke pot, whatever you want, but don't put it in small diameter copper. It's dangerous. That's dangerous. Soy, yeah, you can get a lot of it from soy for sure. Lots of glycerides, and that probably is the source of a lot of them. Yeah. If you got unlimited supply, talk to Alfredo. He can, he's the one, that Bamboo King. They make beer out of it too. But I think it's some of the smaller shoots. They have quite a bit of starches in them. They're very starchy, so you can convert them. But the shoots, I think, are the most tender and have the higher starch. And but if you run what we were talking about earlier this week in some of the groups where what Clint and I talk about on here, Sebflow and Sebamil and Visco Seb and some of these alternative kind of, wait a minute. Here's one of my old man moments. But anyway, Sebflow, Sebamil. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Visco Seb. Trying to think of what's anyway. They're just different amylase enzymes that they're not traditional alpha or traditional gluco. There, a lot of them are beta amylase, but a lot of them, I'm trying to find the word, hemicellulase uh, and cellulase. So they break down cellulose and hemicellulose and lignins, and that's like the cell walls, right? And the meaty parts, and a lot of that you can make ethanol with. So when you're converting this, you can break down that cellulose and hemicellulose with these cellulases. I can't believe I couldn't think of cellulose, man. Man, my mind. But they'll break them down. You know, these different enzymes will break those down too, just the same into ethanol and some other byproducts that you can distill. So definitely, it's a good thing. Now, I'm trying to Viscoseb is the one I think that will break down those. Now, Sebamil and Sebflow are more like beta glucanase, but the Viscoseb, I think, it breaks down a little bit more than just like the wheat glucans and the rye glucans and the barley glucans and all those, grassy grain glucans that have that gumminess. Actually, I think the Viscoseb, if I'm not mistaken, is the one that'll break down cellulose and hemicellulose. And what's that other one? What's that called? Getting old, boys and girls, getting old. I'll think of it here in a minute, but let me make sure that's Viscoseb. Maybe it'll mention here and retrieve my. Yeah, Viscoseb is a multi-enzyme carbohydrates, plant polys like beta glucans and cellulose. Yeah. Cellulase, hemicellulase, xylanase. That's what I was trying to. Xylanase. That's the word I was looking for. Man, I used to remember all this shit. Now I'm getting old, man. I can't believe I couldn't think of cellulose though. That's crazy. I'm getting old. But yeah, xylanase, complex. They're very complex. But yeah, this Viscoseb L will break a lot of those things down. So basically, when people talk about making moonshine out of toilet paper, that's the stuff you need. Viscoseb will take regular cellulose. You can take sawdust. And, now you're going to get, when you make a wood grain alcohol, you're going to get a lot of methanol. But just cellulose alone will still create a lot of ethanol. So to get the methanol, it's going to be a little bit more of a process. Actually, making methanol is harder than making ethanol. So trying to make pure, wood grain alcohol, methanol, it's a lot more difficult, fortunately, than ethanol. So, but yeah, that Viscoseb will pretty much break down toilet paper and make it, into something you can distill, believe it or not. What's going on, Carl? Good to see you, brother. A muscadines, that's good. So that's your arbor, your natural arbor for the muscadines. Well, that's good too. Yeah, yeah, you definitely might want to get a little extra TP or just kind of go lightly with it and just add a little bit of a time, and dial it in. But I mean, there's worse things. I'd rather put a little bit of glycerin in there than you know a whole lot of something else just to get the alcohol right. All right, O'Shane. Take it easy, brother. We'll see you. So what happened to our buddy here, Fishskins 420? And maybe he don't want to talk about it. Maybe he thinks, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't say anything. That's all right, brother. Like that 420 though. But yeah, anytime you want to talk about it, brother, you can come in here and hell, if you want to make another fake, YouTube profile and come in and make you feel comfortable talking about it. I know a lot of people kind of paranoid about talking about it. Shit, this day and time, I don't think most anybody cares about, making a little bit of hooch in your kitchen. There are people that do though. So don't lower your guard and just go willy nilly and telling everybody about it and advertise it in the post office wall. Yeah, I don't think I'll put things, put a little ad on your post office caulkboard, advertising you shine for sale or something like that. Yeah, it's not a good idea. Cork board, that's what I was trying to think of. Chalkboard. Cork board, yeah. But yeah, I don't think I mean, there are some places that do. They are gung ho. Um, there's some states with alcohol law enforcement, and that's all they have to do is pretty much sit around waiting to enforce some alcohol laws, and that's all they do. That's their whole purpose in life. And it's another job. I guess somebody's got to do it. I don't agree with it, but in those states, if you have those in your state, be very careful, because they don't fool around, man. They hear shit, they'll follow up on it. So definitely be careful if you're from one of those states and you want to come in here and comment. I'm trying to corrupt you, but create a fake name or something. Don't come in here with your full name and address and everything and tell everybody where you live and what's on. But then again, on the other hand, if you're in Missouri, you're doing it, legally according to state statutes, and all you have to worry about is feds, and you don't have to worry about state boys. Then you're at the other end of the spectrum, right? You can pretty much come in and be relaxed and talk about it. That's the world we live in these days. Some states, man, they're just chomping at the bit to find somebody, and some states in Missouri, like Missouri, just you can do 100 gallons. We don't give a shit. It's between you and the feds. If you get caught, they tell you have to keep it in your home, and I guess as long as you do, there's not a lot the feds are going to do about it. Just don't sell it, and you're not tax evading, so most people don't have a reason to care. Is there a recommendation for a turkey fryer heat plate for cooking grain? Have a larger pot. Took forever to get the water to temp. I absolutely do, and I'm glad you asked. And I will show you right now on Amazon. Oh, wait. Cancel. Oh, my goodness. I about went to Amazon from this page. Holy shit. That wouldn't have been good. Oh, I can't believe I almost did that, man. That would have been crazy. Yeah, here's the end of the stream. Let's go to Amazon. Oh, man. The burner you want is called a banjo burner. So whatever one you get, make sure that it's got a banjo burner in it. Now you can start with a 6-inch banjo, which is about that big around, and they're okay for smaller to medium pots. But if you got a big 30-gallon pot or something like that with a big old, you're going to need a 10-inch banjo burner. They get about 200,000 BTU. Some of them up to 270. And you want to get a 20 psi regulator. So make sure you get a decent sized regulator. But let's see. I'm going to take a picture of this page that's showing several, and I can kind of describe a lot of the stuff on this page to you. Let's see. Okay. Now let me pull that page up in here. Or I guess, no, I'm going to share screen. I won't do that. Screenshots. Here we go. So I'm going to take this chat down here so we can see. All right, at the very bottom right, you can see that there's a banjo burner with just the hose and the regulator there. That's a 20 psi burner, but that's about a 6-inch. Now you can see some here that's 83, 99, and 29. That one at the very bottom, 29. That's a 6-inch burner which is great for small to medium pots. It'll heat them up. You can boil in no time, and it spreads the heat out well. I think that says 20 psi. Um, Not sure. Looks like maybe a 20 psi. But there's also a burner at the bottom of the page. Yeah, the one at the bottom of the page is the bottom right. See that one, the black one is 29 there, but there's one at the bottom right. That's $24, and that is a 20 psi, and that's also a 6-inch burner. That's great for a smaller medium pot. And you definitely want a 20 psi regulator. Now, the one at the very bottom to the far left, you can see that that's made of fairly thin steel, bent. Those will hold a pretty good sized pot. I was up at Phil's this weekend. He had one almost just like that. We had probably a 30-gallon pot, half filled with water. We were boiling corn in it to eat. It's corn on the cob, and it held the weight just perfectly fine. The one to the right there that's 129, something like that's going to be definitely more sturdy. But if you've got a little stick welder and some angle iron, and it doesn't take, much skill to just weld this angle iron together. You just got to make sure you get good penetration, but you can weld you one together pretty well. But just a good banjo burner, and there's that one for 29. I think the 10-inch. Let me see here. 10-inch is what you want, really. 10-inch is about $40-$50, 49, 50, somewhere in that range. There's a gas one, and that's what I've got. Propane, 10-inch, heavy duty, 20 psi regulator and hose. Works $50. And from that, you can get just regular angle iron and weld it together. Or if you got concrete blocks, you can put it in the middle of a stack of concrete blocks, put your pot on the blocks, and put your burner on a brick, raise it up to where you need it on bricks, and just go old school that way, or even rocks. It works just fine, which is kind of how mine is at this point, because I haven't gotten the burner or the welder out and welded up some angle iron yet, because I'm just too damn ornery. But yeah, so anywhere between, without the regulator and hose, you can get it for 35 to 40. But with that 20 psi hose and regulator, it's going to be right at about $50, and that's great. I will say I would try to avoid the turkey fryers with the horn. Basically, it's like a jet burner. It has one burner coming out, and it focuses everything in a small area like that. It's great for frying turkeys. It's great for boiling water, but it's horrible for cooking grains. So if you want to boil water to steep, it's fine to use for that. But for good even heating, having one of these banjo burners is definitely the way to go. And for $50, getting one plus $39 more to get the stand. If you're not handy, you don't want to build one, or you don't want to be lazy using concrete blocks and rocks, then yeah, you could pay $89 for that one, and it's not bad. Like I said, we were at Phil's, and he's got one very similar to that one. And I was wondering about putting that big heavy pot on there, and it was just fine. Awesome. Well, if you can fabricate, you just buy the bun, the burner, the banjo. They call banjo burners, and yeah, you can get you some angle iron. You'll be able to make one for sure. Just stick weld it together. It's so easy, and make a good solid one. Hell, if you can get some good cheap source of angle iron, you could probably make a living selling them, to people, because people are looking for a little bit more sturdy and not breaking the bank. So I was looking at getting some of these old signs the realtors and stuff uses. Once it gets a little rust on it, they just throw them out and buy new ones. Man, that's good solid angle iron they hammer in. I was thinking, man, I can find a bunch of those and start cutting them up and welding them. They do not. That's the state I was thinking of. They do not play around up there. So if you're in the Kakalaki, North Kakalaki, be very, very cautious because they do not fool around and they will come and get you because they bad boys. What you going to do? They will definitely come for you, man. So yeah, don't play around up there. But in other states like Missouri, they don't give a fuck. As long as you're 21 over and legal, up to 100 gallons. Have at it. Have fun. That's the way it should be. Definitely the way it should be. What's going on, Donnie? Why does my Applejack taste salty? That's a good question, bro. I've never had something come off real salty. And being salty ain't a bad thing, but I've never did you use anything to infuse with, or that's a good question. I've never had anything come off real salty. I mean, do you have well water? A lot of times, well water uses salt as a curing process to clean the water with salt. So maybe if you're on well water, check the purification type system, or if you're on a small little supply, what they call them, little co-ops that supply. Sometimes they'll just dig a well and use salt curing systems to send it to small communities or something. So check and see. Good question. I've never had one come off salty. Did you use anything to infuse it? But I would almost think that it would have to start with the water. Yeah, and I'm reading up on it, and it's very rare that it comes off of steel because that's one of the actually I should have thought about this. That's one of the ways you can actually take like salt water and get just good drinking water out of it is to distill it, right? Because you'll leave all that salt behind. So even distilling a salty water, I should have thought about that, would leave that salt behind. So it'd have to be something in the post. Did you post flavor it with anything or add anything to it after distillation? I can't believe I didn't think about that. But yeah, even if you had a salt purification system in your well, as long as it doesn't have iron, that's the big bad. But yeah, that's crazy. I'm thinking I don't think any of the oils would in the tails would taste salty. I don't. That's a good question, Donnie. It's a mystery to me. I mean, if you infused something, I would say definitely probably it got introduced into the vapor path through infusion, or if you post flavored with something, maybe it had something that really brought out the saltiness. But I've not ever experienced salty stuff unless I added it. There is some salted caramel stuff I like salted caramel stuff I like, a Torani that has a good flavor. That I like. I've added to some vodkas and stuff to flavor up some, but I've never because I don't mind a little bit of salt. Is and if you add some. If you get something like that, maybe just go with it and add some something that would complement it. But salty apple wouldn't be too bad. But I'm thinking maybe if you've mixed it with something post, maybe it had a little bit of saltiness, or maybe the combination brought out some saltiness. But make it caramel apples, right? Maybe add some caramel and you have some salty caramel apples, which that tastes pretty good. Maybe that added some caramel to it and just call it a salty caramel apple. That's why if you get some shine that comes off and it's a little bit sour tasting, but otherwise pretty good, just make some lemon cello, throw in some lemons and make some lemonade. You won't taste that sourness anymore. It'll just complement it, right? It'll all work together. What's going on, Mikey? Good to see you, bro. Kids been fishing a lot, frog gigging, awesome. That's all right, brother. As long as you're getting out and enjoying yourself, that's awesome. 2 pounds, 10 ounces in potatoes. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, brother. I'm glad you're out and about fishing and gigging. Post some pictures in the groups. Let's see what you got. What's going on, Elvin? Good to see you, brother. Yeah. Benchman. Is that the one that has all the different angled ones? I don't see one on here, but there's some that have like just little jets that have them angled everywhere. And those things are pretty nice too, but they're pretty expensive. And I bet that's what you're talking about. Let me see. Blitch Man Hellfire. BLICH. Okay. I bet that's what it is. Blinchman, Hellfire, floor burner for. Okay, let's see what we got there. Oh yeah, that's a basically a banjo burner. That's like a banjo burner, except it's expensive as hell. But yeah, it's like a banjo burner, except it comes at angles and it's just straight out. It's kind of angular on the middle there, but and it's got a fancy stand that comes with it that you can adjust in and out, which is pretty cool. But for the cost, it's basically a banjo burner with a fancy adjustable stand. Expensive, but yeah, that's an excellent banjo type burner. It's got the little holes just like a banjo, right? Yeah, it's very nice looking. Let me get this down here so everybody else can see the chat again. But yeah, that's awesome. That's a nice burner and a nice looking stand. 240-volt electric hot plates for 15-gallon pot. Yes, there are some commercial grade hot plates that work well. They're pretty expensive. Um, if you've just got a 15-gallon, you can put it on the stove, bro. I've got a glass top stove that I've got an 18.5-gallon that I run on all winter, spring, and winter and fall. No problem at all. I don't like running inside, during the late spring, summer, and fall because it just gets the room hot. But yeah, that'll work on your stove just fine. And if it's too tall for your stove, you can just pull your stove out. Just be careful. Pull your stove out. It's got usually a cable long enough to clean behind it anyway, so just pull the stove out and it'll get you past the microwave or the vent hood, whatever, and you can do your business and then push her back in there. You can put your little pump in the sink. If you got a big sink, just pump right there and have water dripping from your sink and pump it in and just pump it out to the other sink and drain it. Done it that way many times. That works. Just put your gallon milk jug in the sink and help it keep the water cool, that's circulating in there. But you'll have to watch, constantly watch the water flow so it doesn't overflow. But yeah, but I've seen some 240-volt electric hot plates. They are expensive, and they got some bigger ones, larger format footprint, but they can get pretty expensive. And the induction ones are even more so. It gets crazy. But you can also get an element. Let's see. Let me show you a picture here. You can get an element and have a ferrule welded into the side, and you can go in with. Let me see. I'm off my pictures now, so let me get back over here. I'm on screenshots. Got a lot of distilling screenshots I need to transfer. I just noticed. Let me find a good picture here. But Phil, Billy, and Jason Acosta, those are the men you need to talk to about getting you an electrical controller. Let me find it here. I got Lots of pics to go through here. I know I got them. What the hell? I think I saw some of my screenshots too, so maybe to go back up there and. Well, shucky darn. What the hell's going on here? Let me just pull it up on Amazon and make a screenshot. I'm pretty quick at that. Let's see. Yeah, let me make a screenshot of that. Some of these are Denord. Don't get fooled by the cheap price of these elements, because that's just a small part of what it takes to make one. You got to create the control box to do it too. But here's some of these elements just to give you an idea of what you can use. And so let me hide the chat again. So these are just regular heating elements. All these will fit on a 2-inch ferrule, right? You see the little at the very end of the tube heating part. You'll see a little disc. That's a 2-inch ferrule. That'll fit on your ferrule that you weld into the side of your pot towards the bottom. A lot of people are heating their kegs up with these. And everybody that's gone to electric says they'll never go back. And so once you go electric, you can get these replacement elements relatively cheap, 40, 50 bucks, and use them. And eventually after time, they'll eventually burn out. If you don't keep liquid level below them, they will immediately burn out. But yeah, they're great, and work really well. And everybody except one person, and I'll never name him, but everybody that's gone electric except for him, and there's a clue, it's a him, have never gone back. They don't go back. Yeah, it's definitely, Greg. You can put 350, 3,500 watt into one of those kegs, or up to 5,500. That'd be really, really quick. You'll be dripping in 30 minutes. It's a lot faster, and it'll boil water really quickly too, and it'll save you a fortune on propane over the long run. So if this is a hobby that you want to get into, and you see that you're going to be into it, and you've already got the bug, you're hooked, it might be time to transition away from the propane and into electric, because it is so much less expensive. You don't ever run out of electric like you do propane tanks, and it's like, oh shit, I got to run to the damn gas station refill, or go to Walmart, Kroger, wherever, Home Depot, wherever you get your tanks, and get it refilled, or exchange it and then get back home, pick it all back up and go. So 220 is definitely the way to go. If you have a smaller pot, you can get by with the 120, or you can go a dual 120 and just plug it into different branches in your wiring, and it's fine. But I think 2,000, 2,500 watt might be about as big as you can go with that. Yeah, South Carolina don't fool around, man. That's what I was saying too, Curtis. Yeah, the salt shouldn't carry through the distillation, because you can distill salt water and drink it and not taste a bit of salt. So it has to be something in the post, and maybe even something, I don't know. Tough to figure. So if you did some infusions or something, then I would look there. Maybe it might have picked it up somewhere like that. Yeah, it's experimenting. And that's one of the things that the court and some of the attorneys and stuff argued for, the right to home distill. Eventually, hopefully, we can make home distillation legal. They recently did do a ruling on it, but that was home distillation with a federal license. Because before that case came out, you couldn't even get a license and distill at home. You could never distill at home legally, period. Even if you were a licensed distiller that had all your permits and everything paid for, you still couldn't do it at home. It had to be in a shack or a building or somewhere other than your home that could be called a business, right? So that's the one thing that struck down, is that you could legally distill in one as a business, as a permitted business. Let me get the chat. Okay, there it is. Have an 8-gallon pot still. Cool. PID with 122,000. Perfect. I mean, for 8 to 10, 12 gallons, that's fine. But once you get to 15, 20, especially like keg, a little taller, not squattier, um, moving a little bit up in wattage speeds things up. And not that you couldn't, but it'll speed things up again. But 8 gallon pot still, 2000. It's so much, man. It's night and day. It's just so easy to do and just to plug and go. Um, yeah. One thing too, PIDs are great, but they tend to cut on and off to maintain a water temperature. SCRs are a little better for that because it's basically you just dial the heat in and it remains constant. Whereas PID will flash on and off to maintain a heat. You just dial the SCR in to get whatever heat it is, and it'll stay constant at that temperature. So it makes it a little better, but you're not going to really tell a lot in the difference. It may be a little tougher to make cuts because of the temperature fluctuations, but you know, it is what it is. When you graduate, maybe you can go to, move up to an SCR. If you go to something bigger, you can graduate to a bigger element and a bigger, or a SCR. But it works fine. PIDs, people used them for a long time before, the SCRs came out, and they realized that it didn't have to, and that's something like on the stoves. When you're doing it on a stovetop, some stoves are like a PID. They'll kick on and off to maintain a temperature. And then some stoves are like SCRs. You just, once you adjust it, and it'll stay bright, and the higher you adjust it, the brighter it gets, and it doesn't cycle on and off, right? So yeah. Well, you can wire that stove in somewhere else. You can get the old stove and get her a nice new one and take the old one. Speaking of which, the old Frigidaire I got came in this house when I got it, and it was old when I got here, so it's ancient. It's probably 17 plus years old, and it's got like the SCR. I turn it, glass top, and it's a nice one. It's convection, better, nicer than the new stainless one we got, but it's got the right burner is a double burner, 3,200 watt, and man, once I get past 6 or 7, it doesn't cycle on and off anymore. It just stays hot, and it's perfect for distilling because that's I don't ever go any lower than those temperatures anyway. So it works fine. But the new stuff sucks. It doesn't have near as hot a burner, and we got one burner that's kind of not working right anyway. So I was glad you take that one on. Yeah, that's perfect. But I'm gonna have to replace either a burner or a dial in it. I need to do that soon. Yeah. The SCR is a little bit more expensive. It's something, but you look at how much you pay, how much you're paying for a, you know, cylinder refill every time, 30, $40, 20, $30, after 5 of those, that's 150, 10 of them, there's a few $100 after 10 of those. You go through 10 in a season, you can buy one for that. Just saying. Right. Yeah. 2,500, 3,500 is fine in a 15-gallon keg. A 5,500, man, will have you dripping in a half hour, man. They just run you out of there. It's so fast. But everybody that's used the electric, I've only heard one person that went back to propane. Everybody else loves it. Yeah. Now, it's not for cooking grains, right? Now, this element is not for putting, in a mash where you're cooking your mash up. No. It's great for boiling the water, but it's not going to be good for cooking your grains, nor can you distill on the grain. And you definitely want to make sure that you got good and clear. You don't want to get chunks of corn in there mixed with it that could get on your element and scorch. That is definitely a possibility. So, definitely not for cooking. Yeah, you can cook and steep on propane and or boil water with electric like that. Turn it off and then dump it out. Make sure you turn it off because once it relies on the liquid to keep itself regulated and cool, right? Once that liquid's gone, that element touches air, it's like a flash bulb, man. It's gone. They just go gone. That's $50 down the hole. But yeah, they're really good and quick. Great for just boiling water. If you wanna use them for just boiling the water, and you want to continue with propane, you can save a lot of money using these just for that. But most people get them. Yeah, it's no longer on the propane, man. They get rid of that propane bottle pretty quick. Like a baby getting off the bottle, man. But yeah, it's everybody that does it. That was my biggest concern too, Carl. Was scorching. And even the mash, because my mash is milky when it goes in. I don't let it get perfectly clear. I've had a lot that would probably never get perfectly clear. But they don't scorch. It's amazing. The element, once it gets to a certain temperature, it creates a little barrier between itself and the liquid. And the liquid, once it gets to a certain temperature, doesn't even actually come into contact with it. It's just, it's like a vapor in between the element and the liquid. And they don't scorch. I tasted tons and tons of liquor made on electric. You'd never know what it was made on. You'd never know. Yeah, yeah. The SCRs, it technically, you need to have somebody do it that knows what they're doing, because you're dealing with 220. The parts aren't crazy expensive. Got to get the box, you got to get the cooling fan, you got to get the heat sink, got to get the SCR, got to get the gauges and a little, LED lights to tell you what temperature are. You got to get the switches on, off, and the rheostat, turn it up and down. So once you get all the parts built or bought, that's half the price. The other half is the hours it takes to get it all put together, cut your boxes, and get everything mounted to look nice and professional. And there's a lot of time that goes into that. So, their time is worth the money. If you don't have the knowledge, then just go ahead and chuck down the 250, 350, whatever, and get one. And know that you've gotten a backing. If something goes wrong, man, this thing overheated, bro. What's up? And I ran it like you told me to, and I don't know, this wire blew out or something, and take it to Phil and Jason. They'll fix it. They'll stand behind their stuff. Yeah, yeah. Once you go to electric, man, it's just like it's so much easier. It's just the convenience of on off. Flipping the switch and not having to, a consumable. That's one less consumable, and really after a season or two of propane bottles, unless you're getting it real cheap, I mean, it pays for itself, because electric's nothing. I mean, you're talking about $20 worth of propane or $3 worth of electric, right? I use a plate with holes in it and set it on 3 glass pint jars above the heating element. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and basically these Vevers, let me show you this. A lot of people don't know it, but I'm going to take 1 second here, and I'm going to highlight and move all these distilling pictures that I've screen captured into my distilling. There. Oh shit, how did that happen? Damn it. Let me highlight them again. I don't know how that happened. I'm holding the control button. What the hell? It won't let me hold control and do it that way. Okay. All right. Well, I'll have to do that some other time. Definitely will have to do that some other time. But let me show you something on these Weber football steels that most people don't know. All right, look on this Weber steel. Now, if you look about 20% of the way up, not quite halfway, about a quarter of the way up, you'll see a little indention, right? This thing comes with a plate that sits right, a false bottom that'll sit right down inside that. Now, if you wanted to use it for that, and I put a coffee cup under mine if I were, if I set something down in there heavy, and if you're using it for canning, you can do the same. You can put a coffee mug down there that's the same height that is, about that much, and help support it because it is thin metal, but it would support a grain bag. If you put a grain bag in there, I will say sparge it. So use your mash liquids to sparge all the small stuff out through a screen, right? You just want to get the grains. You don't want to get all that yeast and yeast bed in there because it'll get yeast in it and it won't be the best flavor. So you want to sparge all that out, right? And just leave the grain. That way you're getting the flavor of the grain. But yeah, it has a false bottom in there and you can use it. If you decide to put a heating element in one of these, which is definitely possible, make sure that you put it below that. That way you could put that in there and you could put a screen in there and kind of help separate and making sure that solids don't get to your element. All right, 921, and I don't have Steven in here to tell me to send out the rest of those links. So I'm going to have to do that while I remember it. So just bear with me a second and let me send the rest of those links out. And we'll be done. I hate to have to. I probably won't be able to get them all out. To be honest, I didn't get very many tonight. So we'll see. We shall see. Eventually, I'm going to get Clint to share some of these with me so we can get them all out at the very beginning. This is really what I would like to do. That would be optimal. Because we got a lot of the smaller groups are basically or just smaller groups of people that are in some of the larger groups too. So, there's definitely going to be a lot of overlap because a lot of, most all these groups, all the groups I share to, and I see a lot of the same friends in there. So we're all pretty much family. We just like having our own little groups to do our own thing in and kind of manage ourselves. And I'm the same way. So that's why Eric and I created the DIY Shine and Steel Building. So we could have our own little thing. Originally, I had the first moonshine group on Facebook, but it's just most real life friends I grew up with and drank shine with and made shine with when I was young, and we pretty much keep it that way. They don't want a lot of outside world brought in. And for those that don't know, it's the Moonshine Mafia. It was started long before the show even came on TV, before anybody cared about moonshine. I just grew up in a place where a lot of people made it, and a lot of my friends, and didn't make it. They definitely were still drinking it. Start high and then back off to about half power. Cool. Yeah, that'll work. That's one of the best ways to do it. A lot of people get fixated on thermometers, and there's nothing wrong with getting scientific and learning all about the temperatures. But I did kind of break it down, and I want to do that for here as well. There's a lot of different temperatures in distillation. Okay, you got the pot temp, right? And the pot temp is the temperature of the actual liquid boiling in the pot. I will show a chart that will explain this. And when you hear people say, "Oh, I'll run mine at 180, and then once so much of stuff comes off, then I'll do this and that." If you're running at 180 degrees, your alcohol has to be, let's see, has to be 100 proof. So your mash is 100 proof. So that's not possible, right? There's no yeast that can survive that. The only way you get that is if it's like a second run and you didn't proof it down enough. You should absolutely never run anything above 40 on this chart. 40% is 80 proof. You shouldn't run anything above that. So, but when people talk about their mash, that's usually 10, 12%. That takes 197, 8 degrees, 8 degrees, depending, to start boiling off. They're lying to you. Those are Google distillers that's never run the first time, or they've got the worst thermometer, or they're going by a different temperature, like the one in the thumper. Right now, you see 180 in the thumper. Yeah, I'm running at 180. Well, the pot is going to be, in the 190s. A lot of times now, that's the first temp, right? This is pot temperatures, and that's what we're talking about when we look at this. And the reason why everybody says, but ethanol boils at 173.1, everybody knows that. Yes, it will, and it absolutely does if it's pure ethanol. But the second you mix water in there, you've got an azeotrope, so it lowers the boiling point of water, and it raises the boiling point of the ethanol. And it's converse relationship, as you see by this curve. The more water, the lower the water's boiling point, but the higher the ethanol's boiling point, to the point where you get more water than alcohol, which is the case when you get beyond 50, right? And some of the other things in there that a lot of other compounds in there are also azeotropes. The methanol, the isopropyls, all azeotropic. So once you realize that my pot temp is 180 and no, but you're definitely your thumper temp 100% can be. But I've heard so many people say, "Oh, I run mine at 180," and they're talking about their pot, right? And no, you can, but you're not going to get anything come off. Now, if like some people will take temperature at the top, it could be 180, and at the bottom, right next to where the heat's hitting the bottom of the pan, it could be easily 195, 200 degrees there, and starting to boil off some. But your liquid is not truly, the temperature that's measured at the top. It needs to be stirred up, and then you can measure, an average in between the two would probably be more likely. But so the people saying I'm cooking off alcohol off my pot still, not running a thumper, not measuring it in the vapor column, because that's the second temperature I'm going to talk about, is the temperature in the column or in the cap. So if you got a thermometer in your cap or on your column in an elbow or somewhere, like some of these put it, or like in this football steel, you'll see it right in the middle of the football. That's going to be a lower temperature than what your pot is, right? Because it's condensing. So once it goes up into the cap, whether it be a horse head or a football or even a column or into plates, it's cooling off. That's what's causing the condensation. So you're getting a lower temperature there, right? Because it's cooling off. So it's always going to be lower than the pot boiling temp, right? So in the 190s, if it's just a standard mash, you're going to expect to see things in the 190s, like in this show. So if you've got a 12%, 195, it's going to start cooking off. If you got 10% mash, 197. And if it's an 8% mash, it's going to start boiling off at 200. Now, you might see a little fog on the top where you've got a hot liquid and cool air hitting it, causing fog. Or you might actually get some boiling at the bottom, right? Because it's a lot hotter right down there at the very bottom of that pot where it's touching the heat, the fire, whatever. So it's always going to be a little hotter down there. So that's why you always see the bubbling and the boiling start at the bottom plate, because it's hotter. It's considerably hotter than the top. So that's your first temperature, is pot temperature. Second temperature is going to be your vapor temperature in your column, measured in your column, always going to be cooler. Then you've got third, if you've got a thermometer in your thumper, You're going to have a third temperature there, like Carl's talking about. It's definitely going to be cooler there, even cooler, than the vapor coming right off the steam, and has had time to cool. Now, once if that thermometer on his thumper is on the top and it's just measuring vapor, it's always going to be cooler. But if it's in the actual liquid, once liquid forms in that thumper and redistills, it's going to be, pretty hot in there too. It's going to be go up to about 190 or whatever if it were in the liquid, because that's a second distillation and it requires that temperature to do. But if it's in the top, which most of them are in these, these pots, these Vevor pots, they have the temperature in the top, little probe sticking down that far, and that's just in the air above, the thumper juice, right? But if it goes down into the liquid, it's gonna measure a little higher. So that's maybe a third temperature. Fourth temperature is going to be in your flake, or where your worm and your coil is, your condenser, right? Depending on how you're doing it. So the water that you circulate around your coil, you can measure that temperature, and that's a pretty good temperature to keep an eye on. But one of the most important temperatures to keep an eye on, nobody measures, and that's the distillate coming off the drip. If you can keep that between 60 and 75 degrees in that range, the closer to 60, the better. That's perfect. That's the temperature you want to keep. So of all the temperatures that people keep, the fewest actually measure that temperature. And that's one of the most important places to measure your temperature, and nobody cares a fuck about that. And that's crazy. But so you'll adjust, the coolant going into your flake, or the flow if your water's cool enough. But your temperature's in the 50, your distillate's coming off at 50, you can slow it down a little bit, right? So you don't need that much cold water going in there. So you can slow the flow and save some money on time and ice. If you're buying ice, especially, please don't just freeze water jugs, milk jugs, 2-liter jugs, and use those instead. Buying bags of ice is almost as bad it's worse than buying propane. It's just an expense that eventually you want to put past you, right? But so measure that distillate coming off, and you want to keep it between 60 and 75 for optimal liquor. That's awesome. That's great, man. Absolutely. And it's still free. I'm sure that it's still free to join. It's limited time, but if there are some lawsuits that they bring up that do pass, sometimes the judges will rule that only members of this association will be able to take benefit of my ruling. And they've done that with marijuana. They've done it with other things. So yeah, they could definitely do it with this. They've done it with guns even. So yeah, definitely being a member is a big plus, and it helps. It's a great thing. Yeah, that the vapor temperature always, once it leaves the pot, it starts cooling. So once it hits the air, it's immediately starting to cool, because you get immediate condensation. If you put a sight glass in your column, you'll see that a lot of it, is coming down the sides, streaming down the sides. And that's because it's instantly cooling. And, the water is one of the first things that will actually condense and come back down. And so once it does, now right above the pot where it's forming, you might get a little bit higher temperature there, but once it gets up into a cap or into a column, it's definitely going to be cooling off a little bit. But steam is hotter than the water. So if that's what you're talking about, yeah, the steam itself can be hotter, but it's right at the point where it comes off as steam. But once it channels up through the cap and into, or up the top of the steel like this, this doesn't have it, but a lot of them have a little slope up, before it goes into the column, the cap, or the football. Yeah, it's very hot there. So that steam is actually hotter than the boiling water below it. But once it starts going up into your column and gets to the top where the elbow is, or the cap, the large horse head with a, thermometer there in near the top, it's always going to be cooler there. But yeah, steam is hotter than the boiling water. cool. Yeah, it's a good idea. Yep. I wasn't aware they went that high, man. That's good though. I guess in the flake that it's not, that's not that high. So yeah, I guess it's anywhere from 50 to 80 degrees, in that range, 40 to 80. Yeah, that's a good idea, Carl. 64, 72. That's perfect, man. 60 to 75, anywhere in that range. That's the Cinderella zone, man. That's what everybody says is the best. Yeah, free option and the 50, 90-year option. That's awesome, man. What's going on, John? Good to see you, man. Thanks for joining us. You're not too late, just 9:30. A little bit late, but that's all right. We won't give you a tardy pass. We'll not send you to the hall. But thanks for joining us, brother. For those that are here the first time, though, we try to get on here every Tuesday and Saturday, 8 Eastern time. So Marcus, wherever you're seeing us now, I'm glad I mentioned that. I'm put this chat back up so people can see cross-platform, because a lot of the guys on YouTube can't see Facebook comments, and a lot of people on Facebook can't see the YouTubers. Dinner and the DQ. Hell yeah. I like old Dairy Queen, man. I love their chicken strips and biscuits and that gravy, man. That's some good stuff. I love dipping that chicken in gravy and eating that biscuit. That's my favorite thing at DQ. I'd rather have that than their milkshakes, to be honest. I love it. Every time I go to Beattyville, man, they got a DQ, and that's where we hit the first place. Get that chicken and gravy. Yeah, their blizzards ain't bad, but man, I love that chicken and gravy, man. That's so good. That's good home cooked tasting gravy too. Really good gravy. And a biscuit. Yes, sir. And it's such a good price, man. They got a deal. It's like 4 strips of chicken, a little big, decent sized cup of gravy, enough to dip your chicken in and have a little leftover, a biscuit, and drink for like $7. It's crazy, man. It's an awesome deal. Yeah, I love it. Love me some DQ. And of course, Ann loves the dilly bars because they got a sugar free dilly bar, man. And she's diabetic, so she can't have it. She loves the sugar free dilly. So they do give you a dessert with that deal too. So yeah, I'm definitely giving a prop for DQ. There's a free plug for DQ. It's an awesome deal. But yeah, you get a little fudge and ice cream dessert to go with it, and nuts. It's a pretty good deal, man. I could definitely go for me some DQ. I love chicken and gravy, man. That's so good, though. No, you got to go to Waynesville, man. Waynesville's where it's at. But we ate pretty good while we were there. There's a couple of restaurants, and country restaurants. They're some of the best ones with country cooking. Not a lot of fast food type restaurants, but a good at what I call country. It's kind of like Tickles, some of them are homes being converted into a restaurant. Some of them are built that way, but no franchise and no big name behind them. Just good home cooking. That's some of the best places you can go, man. Yep. I'll be there, man. Looking forward to it. Damn, it's just 2 weeks away. That's crazy. I tell you what, man, during the summer, these festivals just start boom, 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 popping one right after the other. And then after that one, it's going to be what, a month to farm the bottle. So that's, let me see. Farm the bottle, August 28th. So yeah, be a month more. A month after that, boom, farm the bottle. And then not long after that, be the OBX. OBX. Let's see. OBX usually in the fall, and so is Arkansas. October. No. Wait a minute. No, that's the watermelon. I'm not sure. OBX. They have so many there. Outer Banks. Bluegrass Island Music Festival. That would be great. Yeah, OBX has quite an Outer Banks. It's quite a bit of festival. Now the Arkansas. It's usually around Halloween. That's usually around Halloween. October 3rd this year. Okay. Ozark Moonshine and Music Festival. That's great, man. I love the people down there. They remind me so much of where I grew up in Eastern Kentucky. They're a different kind of hill, but different hills, but similar hillbillies. That's for sure. A lot of people take, this day and time, AI will automatically take out the word hillbillies because that's a slur. I'm a hillbilly and I don't mind the hillbilly at all. It's like calling a redneck a redneck. We'll wear that shit with pride, man. So it's not a slur. OBS, yeah, it's close by. And it's a good festival too. Oh hell yeah, man, they got good. Yeah, it's good. Definitely. Get the chicken strips and biscuits with gravy, and oh, it's good. And you get a little dessert and a drink. It's good combo. It's like $7-8. It's a really good deal. If I wasn't living at home, if I was still working out inside the home every day, I would definitely go there for lunch every day or dinner. Yeah, I wish Damon keeps up with the calendar. It's a month to month thing, but we need to try to keep an annual just list of events from one to the next, just a list, not even on the calendar, just list it in chronological order. We'll try to do better at that. We do need to do better. We need to try to do that and get up with each and maybe have them. It's tough too because sometimes it's like spring before they plant it, and it's just 3 or 4 months from now, and they're still trying to figure out what day they're going to have it. So we're kind of at the mercy of a lot of the event planners, but most of them, know pretty much at least 6-8 months in advance. So we need to try to just do a list like that. It's hard to do on Facebook, but we'll definitely try to do a little better at that. I mean, it's a lot of work for Damon to keep the calendar together. We didn't have one at all for June because he's busy. He works away from home. He's gone for a week or two at a time away from home, and he's just it's tough for him to do everything and he's got a lot on his lap. So I give him a break sometimes, man. I cried him. Oh, he's pretty fun to mess with. But ask on, jump in the group anytime you want to know what festivals are happening. Is members can chime in, and say, well, I'm on the board of this place, that place. We do have a lot of people on the board at the Farm to Bottle that are in the group, so we can definitely anytime you can do that. Yeah, it's one of his things that he does. Entertains himself while he's on the road doing his podcast. He likes to do the he's into the scary movies and thrillers and he loves getting on there and talking about those. That's been since I've known him, he's always loved that. He's done that for probably close to 10 years, so he's always been into the scary stuff. But he gets on with a lot of other people and does some informational with Wayne and Amanda sometimes, and getting on with and staying on the moonshine topic. But yeah, he does a lot of different podcasts, and they're a lot of fun. If you're into that kind of thing, they're a lot of fun to jump on there and talk about scary movies, your favorite ones, what impacted you as a child. Yeah, everybody likes good scary movies. But yeah, but just jump on here. I can usually find it. I can get on Google and I do notice a lot of the people that are in charge of some of the places. If I can't find it there, I can get up with them on Facebook. I know a lot of the organizers and people that live locally to a lot of them, fortunately. But there's some that I haven't been to that I want to get to. Um, and some in Louisiana I want to get down and go to. Um, some in Missouri, that I want to go to. There's another one in Arkansas. I'd love to be able to go to all of them, but I'm getting so old. I can't drive anywhere, man. I fall asleep at the wheel. I can't. A couple few hours is it for me. If it's longer than a 3 hour drive, I might have to start drinking coffee before I drive just to keep me awake because I start getting drowsy, and I've caught myself a couple times falling asleep at the wheel. So I can't do it. I don't drive long distances. Couple hours, few hours, that's no problem. Going to fields and back wasn't a problem. Um, but anything over 3 or 4 hours, it's tough on me. I can't do it. What's going on, Big Soup? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, we had a great Independence Day. Hopefully you had a good weekend too, brother. 3:30 for you. Oh man, yeah, my fiance's a 5 o'clocker. She has to be up at 5. So I understand, Carl. Have a good one, brother. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back here on Saturday. Have a good week, my friend. So what's going on, Big Soup? Nah, we're not doing much, brother. Just chilling, talking about eating Dairy Queen and a little bit about moonshine, man. Yeah, had a pretty good conversation earlier about going electric. Transitioning from propane to using the electric elements. That's a big thing these days. And a lot of people doing it, and everybody that's done it, except for one person, is loves it. Man, everybody is so convenient. Just be able to, instead of cook on that stove, just to plug into where the stove plugs in and heats up faster, more evenly, much better. Yeah, it's a lot better. What's going on, Adam? Good to see you, brother. But yeah, adding the SCR or PID, even whatever you can come up with, definitely the way of the future, man. It's so much more convenient, and it's just adding heating elements. They're similar to a water heater element, not real expensive. Getting the control boxes for these are, but I guess the elements, the consumable, you might go through one every 3 or 4 years until you know, heat one up without the electric on it, or forget that it's still plugged in when you drain the steel or something like that. And then it's gone just like that. But if you take good care of them, keep them clean, they'll last for a long time. They sure will. And they heat up so fast, man. You'll get boiling water so quick. A lot faster than propane, man. It's really quick, especially if you got dual elements. It gets crazy. Like you put in two 5 or 5,500 watt elements, man, you can have that water boiling in no time. You know, so it's definitely convenient. But just some precautions. You can't let the water level get below it, and you got to keep your mash. The wash that you put in the steel has to be a little cleaner. You don't want to have bits and particles in there because they can scorch. Yeah, they are the bomb, man. They are, and they're not that expensive. These are all pretty much Denord. A lot of them are Denords. In fact, I think they're all Denords. Now there's a couple of different name brands here. Let me remove this. Y'all can see it. Um, well, that one might just be too. I don't know what that is. Oh, that's an insulated contact temperature ceramic thermostatic heater aluminum. I don't know what the hell that is. Anyway, the rest of them are elements that'll fit a 2-inch clamp. The wavy ones tend to be pretty good for smaller things. That way, they're not as long. The ones that are folded over several times are pretty convenient too, because they get a lot more heating element in a shorter area. The bent ones are the least expensive of the three, for the reason that they tend to be a little bit longer, for the wattage rating that they are. A lot of times they're a lower wattage rating too. The one I got's like the one on the left there. It's been over itself double, triple times, two loops, and then a third right down the middle. And those things, man, they heat up fast. They really do. George on the Barley and Hops YouTube page has a ton of easy to follow videos on how to build SCR. Yeah, there's quite a few on YouTube as well. If you're good with electronics and good with electrical, give it a shot. If you're not very proficient and you don't know which right, at least find the right size gauge of wire to use and do everything properly. And it can work out fine. There's some videos on how to do it. I mean, hell, Phil Beasley will help you. He makes them and sells them. And if you're trying to do it yourself, he'll say, oh, yeah, you need to do this, or don't use that wire. That's going to be way too small, man. It'll blow like a fuse. You need, 8 gauge or 10 gauge for that size or whatever. He'll help. But yeah, there's lots of great information out there. The SCRs is really the way to go. And like I said, the parts aren't all that expensive. Once you add them all up, you're looking at probably $120 for all the parts, not including the element. So, you're looking at maybe 150. And I'm talking about the box, the LED readouts, the on-off switch, the rheostat, the SCR, the heat sinks, the fans. Once you add all that up, and the wire and everything to do it, you're easily almost half the cost of one, and the other half is, having somebody build it for you and stand behind it, which means a lot to people that don't know how. But if you're handy and you're familiar with electrical and you're not scared, or maybe you aren't scared and you should be, then tackle it yourself. If you're not that familiar with it, or might just go ahead and spend that 100, 150 and let somebody else do it for you, because it's going to cost you half or a little bit more than what they charge just for the parts. And then, so that $100, maybe just give it to them and let them do it and stand behind it and warranty it for you. That's definitely worth it. But yeah, it's a project that you can tackle if you're handy, for sure. And lots of good sources. Yeah, I loved watching George and Barley and Hops, and I watched a lot of his videos, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this format of Q&A, is because it's very informative watching George. But if you have a specific question that you want to ask, it's tough. Used to in his comments, he did fairly well with answering questions, but once he sold that, he had a non-compete clause where he can't do it anymore. And it was just, if you want your question, so like if you have a question, what should I do this at, or what temperature should I do this, or what, asking, it's tough to ask in the groups because you get so many different answers. And if you go onto the videos and watch the videos, I mean, you could watch the videos for hours and hours, days, and not get an answer. And finally, he'll talk about the topic you're interested in, and you'll get your answer. But you have to watch through a lot of video to get there. Whereas here, it's more of a Q&A format. I thought about doing kind of like the videos, but that's been done. Everybody's done that and has the videos out there. If you want to watch them, YouTube's full of them, but not anybody's doing just Q&A where you can come in and just ask, put me on the hot seat, ask a question and watch me squirm if I can't answer, because I don't know everything, and I will try to find you an answer, because if I don't know the answer, I should. And so I'll try to find it, and we can talk about it. But that's why I always wanted to do this format, because it's just, nobody's out there doing it. Nobody's out there answering questions and helping people with the hobby in that way. Because lots of videos on how to, and watch me do this, but, not a lot of people that you can just come to and get good answers. And, and that's what we're for. That's what we're here for. And we don't have all the answers, but most of your basic and intermediate answers we'll have. There's some high science questions, that you can bring up that, talk about the conversion of one, compound to another and transitioning between two compounds and all that can get quite complex that I might not have the answer for that we'll look up. But for the most part, yeah. Right, no open flames, but there's electric shock and liquid pretty close, and so it's either gas and flames, vapors that are flammable and flames, or electrical and water. So am I going to burn up, or am I just going to until I die? Which is it going to be? So both are dangerous, and you still have to respect it, but it's so much easier and convenient to do it this way for sure. All right, see Shine. Thanks for tuning in, brother. Have a great week. We'll see you Saturday, bro. Hello, Miss Tammy. How are you? I hope your hip's getting better. Hope y'all had a good Independence weekend. It's a good question. I don't know about the pre-built ones. Um, but for 30, $40, give it a try. I mean, the parts alone pretty much cost more than that, so I can't imagine them being that great. Let me look here. Now let's see. Some of those just aren't going to be rated for what we're doing anyway. And some of these that say 10,000 watt, 240 volt regulator, 5 SCRs, dimmer switch, 30 amps, $38 will blow. There's no way they handle 10,000. That would be a peak, and they're not going to handle my 9,000 watt element at all. Fact, they will not. In fact, most of these won't handle a 5,500. Believe it or not. AC variable speed controller. If you have a motor, that would be fine. But again, for a heat type, like they say, it's a router for a fan or electric motors. They're great for that, but for a heating element, they can't handle it. Here, SCR controller voltage 10,000 watt for heat controller, AC 80 amp output. I can 100% guarantee you they're not going to handle 80 amps. But for a 3,000 watt, those might be okay, but they say 10,000, that's not happening. It takes a lot more for anything above the 55, 6,000. It's a different bear. You almost have to go with an SSR instead of an SCR, which is a solid state relay, instead of a semiconductor relay. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit considerably more expensive. I like the 9,000 watt element because I can run it on a 5,500 SCR rated for a 5,500 and get 55 all day long and run it at 100% as long as that controller can handle it. My element's going to be able to handle it, and it'll last longer. But yeah, some of those for 16, $17 might be good for a 2,000 or a 2,500 watt element, but they're not going to handle a 55 or a 6 guarantee, especially even the ones that say 10,000. I don't know. Buy one and see. I mean, for $17, and a little bit of wire, rig one up to one of these elements, and you'll buy one for element for $50 and rig one of these up to it and see how many amps it'll take. Put an amp meter on there and just see how many it takes till it pops. Because I don't even see a really big heat sink on them, and I don't see a fan, which really it will need both. So I just can't imagine them lasting good. I don't know what kind of capacitor they have on there. If it's not a good Japanese capacitor, it's probably not going to handle it well either. But try one out. I mean, if it works, awesome. You can tell us all about it. I got no clue. My batch ratio is fucked. Well, you don't even know what my batch ratio is. You're just a little tro. Say bye. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like old George. Yeah, he's cool. 2,000 watt on yeah, 120 volt, 2,000 watt is fine for a smaller setup. Absolutely. Yeah, and 3 to 4,000 watt would be fine on a 15. Yeah, absolutely. You just love trolls that come in like that. Nothing to contribute but stupidity. Do you have anything else to say stupid before I ban you there, Como? Yeah, I didn't think so. Bye. Troll. At least humor me, man. At least say something funny, something original. I might let you stick around a little while if you humor me. They think it's such a big deal, and it's just one little button. Boom. Bye. A lot of people stupid hate. Yes, it is, Miss Tammy. It sure is. I haven't had a shot. Let's see. I need to save this, and I'm saving this for a special occasion. I can't talk about it right now because it's going to be a special podcast we got coming up. Phil's going to be on here with me, and I'm not going to give up too much before that. Other than that, but it's going to be very interesting. It'll be definitely a show that everybody won't miss. We will advertise it though before we do it, so the cat will be out of the bag before we do it, but won't it kind of be a surprise and something new. And I think he was trying to troll Phil Billy about his ratios of fruit and sugar and all this stuff and the drinks he makes. And how can you be wrong about an opinion? You know, it's an opinion. I like it with this much sugar in it. Now you may not. You may like more. You may like less. You may like less fruit taste. You may like more. You may want higher proof. You may want lower proof. Those ain't facts. So yeah, just a troll. Just a troll. That's good. We can drink some together. Lord, that's 140 proof tough though. Hard on the old throat. I need to proof that down just a little bit. Lord, Wes killing me. The beverage chiller, good deal. Somebody else was talking about that. Is that like the quarter horsepower one? Who else was it talking in here? Was that Frank? Somebody was talking about. Turn this fan on, Cam. You got me all hot and bothered over here, man. Um, somebody was talking about getting. Is that loud on y'all? Yeah, I can see it on the microphone. Yeah, it's a little better right there. Exactly. I mean, who's to say that your ratios are wrong? Okay, what's right? What you like? Okay, well that's right for you, but maybe not everybody else in the world. That's crazy. People just like to troll, man. It's just there's a lot of unhappy people in the world these days, and I'm not gonna get political or anything, but our media is trying to stir up this division any way they can. White, black, good, bad, evil. Orange man. Blind man. It's just all trying to twist everybody up and get everybody to each other's throats. Because as long as we're arguing with each other, united we stand, divided we fall. Have you ever heard of that? That's why they want division. That's the only way that they'll ever have any control over us is if they keep us divided. So keep that in mind. So how's that chiller working, John? I think Phil had one, and I think he was running a 30 at the time. and it wasn't enough to do his complete run on the 30. But I think on a 10, 15, 20, it would have been fine. But on his 30, it wasn't enough to, especially once he got near the tails and trying to run them out. So he got a second one and ran them in line with each other. And he said he had plenty of cooling and then some. So I'd say if you kind of regulated the water that went into it and put some ice, frozen jugs of ice in there, that would probably help enough to keep it, working no matter what. That's what I do. I'll either use a sink on the inside or a cooler outside, and just keep putting the old jugs in there, in the sink or in the cooler, and just pump from there. Thinking about getting a big huge tote like a 250 and putting it on the gutter, and using that for watering my garden and for garden water, right? But I think that worked pretty well too. But I can hide one behind the bushes, kind of paint it green and tuck it in there behind the hedgerow, and nobody even know it was there. And just pump it. Good so far. No worm. Cool. Yeah, I'm not. He was running his on a flaking worm. Yeah. Yeah, Liebigs and shotguns are a little different. But yeah, it's. I've not run a chiller. I was thinking about doing the hillbilly chiller thing, and just as shit and giggles kind of thing, but taking an old window unit you can buy for $10, $25. It still works, and folding the coil down and putting it in water and running it, and they say those work pretty well actually. And I've got a buddy that got one of those old, the I guess what do you call it? The fountains in school, the water fountains in school, where you can just walk up and take a drink, and it's always good, cold, ice cold water. Well, those have a built-in chiller, and a buddy of mine took one and made a chiller out of one of those, and it worked pretty well too. But yeah, I was thinking about taking an old window unit. They've got some videos on YouTube on how to do that. I think Phil Billy might have done it too, probably. He's done about everything. Um, but if not, there are a lot of other videos on there that are good for you. You just got to be careful about bending that coil down and not crimping your copper, tubing. And if you can get it bent over without bending that and crimping it, yeah, you're golden. But just cut it out, fold it over, and they work really well from my understanding. Trying to keep them from freezing, is an issue. Vert, you gotta put the water that you got coming back, pretty close to certain parts of that so it doesn't freeze, and so they must work pretty well. Is that fan very loud for y'all? I know for the old microphone it wasn't, but this new one might pick it up. Is it very loud? Because once I start drinking, I damn sure will need it. I've been out in the sun. I mowed grass in the 94-degree sweltering heat. Felt like 104. It's hard on an old man. If you're going to use two 2,000-watt, 120-volt heating elements, they can't be on the same circuit. Right. Just plug it in two different places, right? Two breakers, two different circuits. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, just run it to two different ones. And I'd also stay away from GFIs. So, I wouldn't plug it in a bathroom one, maybe, or a kitchen one, maybe somewhere else. And 20 amp, not some of the 15s, because some of your breakers may be 15s for certain plugs. You don't hear that fan. Okay, good. Because I can see it illuminate one of my lights on my mixer board just a little bit, and I just don't want that distraction, that noise in the background. People might not be able to hear me good. I do like my new little microphone setup though. Pretty slick. And my new little mic mixer. I haven't. I've got a voice changer that's fun. I'm not gonna fool with it on here, but when I'm talking to other people, or like on the shit show when I'm kidding around and stuff, it's awful fun. It's got different voice synthesizers. Let's see, make it sound like an old man. It don't sound like an old man. Okay, I'll do this one.
Elder, this is what an old man is supposed to sound like, I guess.
Now, is that how old man sound? What's going on, Master? It's good to see you, man. You got it. You got here just in time to hear my old man's voice. Old man, that don't sound like no old man. That's like Lurch. You remember him? Was it Lurch from the Munsters or Addams Family? Addams Family. That's what he sounded like. But yeah, it's got Elder, Monster. I don't know, Monster doesn't sound. Robot. You can't even understand what it's saying with robot. Megaphone. I don't know. It sounds like I'm talking to a megaphone. Kind of sounds okay. Baby. It's that the baby one's pretty funny. It is funny. Female. Kind of ish. And then male. And then it's got an auto tune, but you can't tell that it's on. I guess I'm in tune. You ring. There we go.
I went to Monster.
There we go. You rang.
That's funny shit right there. For a heavy lisp. No, you have to talk to Mike Tyson for that. I should talk like it, man. Especially about Mike. That motherfucker tear me up. Yeah. That's the best kind ever if you can afford the pipe. But yeah, I wouldn't run it down any PVC, but if you got some copper, man, you could definitely run it that way. A lot of old timers have. They like to shine right next to those little steep drops, not necessarily like a waterfall, but where you get a good 10, 12 foot drop within a, 30 feet long, pretty deep, steep little decline. It'll definitely work through something like that. But I tell you what, some old timers, man, just get the bucket brigade. You just go down there and collect the bucket and come pour it in the flake stand, every 2 minutes or so. You just have to keep doing the buckets, That's about as old school as it gets. No, but it is pretty funny. Damn, that shine puts a little scratch in my throat every time I drink it. That 140 is pretty stout. It might be a little higher. I need to measure it. Whew. You wait and see if I don't proof that down before I drink any more of it, man. It puts a scratch in my throat every time I drink it. Yeah, I thought old Wes would be at Phil's this weekend, but I guess every year he has he's got camper and his whole family camps and they go camping every year this time. I wasn't thinking about that. But I miss seeing my old buddy Wes this weekend. Got to see Big Easy and Derek and Sean done the bunch, but miss seeing old Wes there. Yeah, but it's fun playing with that thing, messing with people. And the woman don't sound like a woman, and the baby sounds pretty funny, but it just sounds like you just inhaled some helium or something, you know. But when I laugh, it's got a pretty funny giggle. It's fun. The little things that humorous, huh? But it does. It is a good. This microphone you can use USB or uh, SLR, and for the SLR, it's a really good. Um, Maybe it's not SLR. XLR, yeah, XLR, not SLR, XLR. But for microphones that do the XLR, it's uh, it's good for that. The XLR does sound better than just the USB on some of these on the microphones that use both. The reason I went with the XLR is because if you use it to power this microphone through the USB, it can burn it out on the board because it's really not designed. It's designed for charging and small wattage, and this microphone takes quite a bit, so I didn't want to burn it up. So this will definitely save my motherboard. Yeah, I'll tell you how they did it. They had big, huge coils, and they had big, huge flake stands, man, that were just massive. And they would pump water to it, you know, or they would like we were talking before. A lot of moonshiners like to have moonshine next to a drop, and the reason being is they could draw out of the high and just through siphoning have it pump, siphon downhill to their flake, and it would flow just like a garden hose. Or the bigger the pipe, the harder it would flow. And if you had a 3-inch pipe PVC, it'll flow 3-inch PVC. If you can get it primed and pumped and started, it'll continue as long as you've got a pretty good reservoir at the beginning. Yeah, it'll pump like nobody's business, man. It's unbelievable. And you can get trying to think of this pump method that will actually pump uphill. It's a siphon pump that works just with the what do they call that? Man, my mind, I'm losing it. But yeah, I would say that the still was probably 10-15 foot drop on a creek that was flowing pretty well, or a small river that had a drop, and they just siphoned it into it. Yeah, oh Google can't give me all my answers like I want it. Come on. I can't think of the name of it, but AI. Strictly speaking, siphons require gravity and cannot pump uphill. However, you can use a manual drill powered or 12-volt transfer pump. No shit. That's AI. You're such a genius. Nobody knew that you could use a little drill pump or something, pump uphill. Wow. I'm so glad we have AI, right? But there's actually it's a crash pump. What's it called? But it actually uses the siphon action as a pump, and it'll literally pump uphill. And I'm trying to think of what that's called. They did it on the Moonshiner show, but yeah, what's that called? Ram pump. It's a ram pump. Yeah. And it took not the AI, but it took a YouTube video, some countryman on a YouTube video that built a 1/2-inch ram pump. Thank you. AI don't know shit about shit. Ah, mighty. I can't depend on them, but it's a ram pump. I couldn't remember that name. I'm getting old. But yeah, the old ram pump that uses like a cylinder, and yeah, you have to see it, but they definitely work. Hard to get started, but once you get them started and you got a good pool to draw from that doesn't, get shallow or vortex and get air into it. As long as it doesn't do that, as long you can run that ram pump for a long time, man. They'll work well. But they will pump uphill. They did that on the Moonshiner show too. Jerry and them did it. An old ram pump. Oh yeah. Yeah, they had that shit flowing, brother. And as far as going low and slow, a lot of us preach low and slow so people don't scorch or go too hard. But when I hear people that have a 5 or 10 gallon still and they're running and it's taking them 12, 14 hours to run, that's getting it's just ridiculous. That's just too much right now. It's 4 to 6 hours should be plenty to get through your tails and run at a decent drip or flow, depending on your still size. If you're 10 or less, it should be a drip. If you're 15 to 30, you can have a thin stream, no problem at all. If you've got a 50 to 100, you can have a pretty good, pencil size stream coming out. If you've got a 500 gallon, we're talking about not garden hose with pressure, but a siphon garden hose size coming out, right? A stream, the size of the pump or the hose it's coming off of. So, I've seen some of these big distilleries, with big, huge, I don't know if it's probably coming off a column, but it's like a fire hose coming out of there, man. It's massive amount coming through. And they show it coming through, and they got this big glass, to see how much of it's coming out. I mean, it's pouring out of there a lot. Like water from a gutter, man. It's coming out hard. Coming out hard, man. So the bigger the still and the more super adequate that your worm and temperatures can get, that can dictate on how fast you can run. But don't outrun your worm. Don't outrun it to where your distillate coming out's above 75, 80, or you're just defeating the purpose. That's not good. So that's pretty much going to be your limiting factor, is how well you can condense and cool and come out between 60 and 75. So, as well as you can do that, you're good. But just don't outrun your worm or your condenser. I couldn't believe I couldn't think of a ram pump. But it's a principle that's been around forever and ever. And it'll definitely pump uphill. AI. They need to learn that. AI doesn't know that. But you can use a drill or a 12-volt pump. Jeez, man. Thanks. I didn't know that. Who's Google? Gonk? Yeah, I've heard some bad rumors on them anyway. I need to find me a better AI. Well, it's about 10:30. I reckon I'm going to wrap it up. It's been a great Tuesday. Had some newcomers in here, a few newcomers. That's always great to see. And for all the newcomers, remember we're here on Tuesday nights and Saturday nights at 8 Eastern time. So bring your questions and come in, have a shot or two with us, hang out and talk about distilling. Tell us about what you've got going on and your successes and failures and what you've learned. We all learn by our mistakes. So sharing your mistakes will definitely help everybody learn from them, and I've certainly made every mistake to be made. That's how I learned. I didn't have internet or anything helping me when I was growing up making it. It was just fail, fail and learn, fail and learn, and then eventually you start getting better. When you get the right ratios, right? That troll, I can't believe that. But yeah, good seeing you, Curtis. Everybody come back and see us Saturday evening. We'll be here at 8 Eastern. And till then, have a safe week and a good one. And we will see you here Saturday evening or tune in Friday. I'm not sure what we're going on. Let's see what we got going on Friday on the militia page here. Let me see here. I think we got the tag on it. I think Damon updated the calendar after I got onto Damon. It's June, and we don't have a June calendar yet. Yeah, he's been out of town, man. He does his he can do his podcast pretty easily, but it's hard for him to. He's on a laptop and just trying to fight the boredom of being on the road and everything without his family. I know that's tough, man. American Moonshine. So yeah, that'll be entertaining. So jump on and check them out, and we will see you on the 8th, July 8th at 8 Eastern. Till then, shine on. Everybody have a great week. Peace out. Love y'all. See you then.